One day, my husband vanished without a trace. It took several days for me to uncover the shocking truth. He had eloped with my sister. 12 years later, after an extended period of silence, Josh reached out again, declaring his intention to bring his wife, my sister, back home. However, when I confronted him about it, he bluntly told me to leave my parents' house, asserting that I was in the way. Living with my in-laws for over a decade, I found myself at odds with Josh, who seemed reluctant to acknowledge my presence. Despite the passage of time and a seeming resolution, Josh was now planning to welcome my sister, Nova, as his new wife. The dynamics within the family, including my own feelings, remained uncertain and unexplored. My name is Ivy, and at 27 years old, I pursued a major in design during my student days. After joining a web design company, I met Josh, who eventually became my husband. With a friendly demeanor and a sales job, Josh and I got married after a year of dating. Opting to live with my parents-in-law, I transitioned to freelancing as a web designer. While juggling house chores and supporting Josh, I worked from home, gradually establishing a stable income from various projects. Our life together was content, gathering around the table with my husband and parents-in-law for meals. However, things took a turn 2 months ago when I achieved a significant milestone. My income exceeded my previous job salary. Eager to share the news with Josh, I anticipated his delight, but upon his return home, it became evident that something had changed in him. I hurried to the entrance, wearing a joyful smile, eager to share my exciting news with Josh. Josh, listen. Last month's income surpassed my previous company's salary. I expected him to share in my enthusiasm, but instead, he responded with skepticism. "Huh, no way. Wasn't your company paying quite well?" Despite having worked towards this goal for a long time, his reaction was unexpectedly disapproving. "Well, congratulations or something," I retorted, attempting to understand his mood. However, his response, filled with sarcasm, left me puzzled. "Is that all?" "What should I have said? I'm not that cheerful," he remarked. Confused and concerned, I pressed further. "Hey, Josh, are you upset about something? I thought you'd be happy for me too." His reply was cold. "Why would I be happy? It's not like my salary increased." Attempting to uplift the mood, I mentioned, "But a wife's joy is her husband's joy, isn't it?" His dismissive response left me even more perplexed. From that day on, my husband's attitude became increasingly distant. Everyday conversations dwindled, and even simple greetings like good morning and good night were initiated by me. Despite being married for just 1 year, our life together seemed far from happy. Even my in-laws, who lived with us, started noticing the strained relationship, but they remained silent, possibly out of consideration or hesitation. Now, 2 months later, my relationship with Josh remains unchanged. While we still share meals at the same time, conversations are almost non-existent, and he changes the TV channel without asking. While I watch TV, he'd help himself to snacks I bought without asking. Knowing that arguing would only make things worse, I kept silent. One day, as I cleaned the house amidst this ongoing tension, my mother-in-law approached me with concern. "Ivy, are you okay?" she asked, her expression troubled. "Huh? What do you mean by okay?" I replied, trying to brush off her worry. "Well, back when you and my son just got married, you used to go out together a lot. Lately, it seems like that's not happening, and there's not much conversation either." "Yeah, it's only been a year since we got married. It's a bit strange, isn't it?" I forced a smile to avoid causing her further concern, but she seemed to see through it all. With a serious expression, she looked straight at me. "If you don't want to talk, I won't force you, but I'm concerned about you. Lately, you seem a bit empty. Your father-in-law has noticed it too. Both of us are worried that maybe you're pushing yourself too hard." Perhaps initially, I blamed myself for upsetting Josh about the income matter, but on the other hand, I couldn't shake the loneliness of not having him share in my success. The concern shown by my in-laws, who noticed the strain in our relationship, warmed my heart. Deciding to confide in my mother-in-law, I explained the situation. After hearing everything, she apologized and gently touched my back. I'm sorry to hear that he isn't a man if he can't even praise someone he loves for their hard work. It's my fault. I just assumed Josh would be happy for your success. It's not something you should worry about. However, if we intervene, it might make things more complicated. Complicated, that's so. I think you and Josh should discuss this thoroughly on your own. Can you do that? She asked. Yes, I'll be fine. Thank you for listening, I replied, grateful for her understanding. With a gentle smile, my mother-in-law stroked my head. My in-laws, who treated me like their own daughter, became my true saviors with her advice. I resolved to engage in a meaningful conversation with my husband that night. After putting my child, Lars, to bed, I waited for my husband's return. However, as the hours passed, there was no sign of him. Typically home by 10 p.m. at the latest, it was now past 11 o'clock p.m. I grew increasingly concerned. Why was he so late? There was no response to my messages, and worry drove me to call him multiple times. Each attempt met with only ringing and no answer. Anxiously awaiting his return, it wasn't until after 12:30 a.m. that he finally appeared. Greeting him with a simple welcome back, I was met with a heavy sigh and an unpleasant expression on his face. Puzzled, I questioned why he was still awake at this hour. His response was far from what I expected. I wanted to have a proper conversation with you today about us. Since I brought up my salary, things between us have changed, I confessed, inadvertently letting my thoughts spill out. Sensing a shift in his demeanor, I added, maybe I hurt your pride, Josh. In that moment, my husband's cold face stared back at me, and fear overwhelmed me. Speechless, I could only listen as he casually spoke, seemingly mocking me. There's really no need to talk with you anymore. Waiting up for my return and trying to have a conversation. Seriously, it's creepy, especially as a married couple. All I wanted was to nurture a better relationship with my husband, yet his dismissive words cut deep. That stuff is annoying, neck, he retorted, his tone filled with frustration. Feeling a wave of doubt crash over me, I wondered if I had made a grave mistake in marrying him. His abrupt departure upstairs, dismissing my concerns, left me rooted to the spot until his footsteps faded away. As I stood there, his hurtful words replayed in my mind. All I craved was a semblance of normalcy in our married life. Despite my mother-in-law's encouragement, our unresolved issues loomed large, making it daunting to initiate another conversation with my husband. Rejected and dejected, I couldn't shake the feeling of being utterly alone. 2 months passed in a numbing routine of silence. Then, on an ordinary day, I noticed something amiss in his room. Was Josh's room ever this tidy? Known for his lack of tidiness, the sight of his neatly organized space unsettled me. His absence became glaringly evident when I realized that he had left without a trace. Panicked, I tried contacting my in-laws, but their phones remained silent. It was then that my sister, Nova, called. "Sis, your husband isn't there, right?" she asked, her tone grave. Confused and alarmed, I demanded an explanation. Nova's revelation, though unbelievable, confirmed my worst fears. She was with my husband. At first, it was really just a coincidence, she explained cryptically, leaving me reeling with shock and confusion. I ran into your husband at a pub, and we ended up having a few drinks together. He mentioned that things weren't going well between you and him. Nova, you can't be serious. I'm dating your husband now. We're planning to get married, so don't try to intervene, okay? Don't joke about this. Bring Josh back right now. Sorry, that's impossible. I've been interested in your husband for a while. He's tall and handsome, so sorry. I'm taking him. He's mine now. Nova's voice asserted, and the call abruptly ended. Despite my attempts to reach her again, Nova remained silent, bombarding me instead with numerous photos. Among them were couple shots with my husband and images from their dates, images I couldn't bear to look at. A few days later, divorce papers arrived from my husband. When I contacted his company, I discovered he had already resigned. It was a situation I couldn't handle alone anymore. Seeking advice, I explained everything to my parents and in-laws. Josh and Nova's betrayal stunned everyone into silence. It seems Josh and Nova have eloped. He quit his job without telling me, and apparently he intends to divorce me, I confessed. Ivy, I'm truly sorry for my foolish son. I don't expect you to forgive him, and you shouldn't. My father-in-law spoke up slowly. Father, I apologize for the harsh words, but I can't forgive your sister Nova either. To me, you're like a real daughter. I can't forgive those two who hurt my precious daughter. That's how I truly feel, my father-in-law added solemnly, his sentiments echoed by my mother-in-law and my own parents. In that moment, our perspectives shifted entirely towards Josh and Nova. May and Lars, my in-laws, decided to move away, cutting ties with their son. Meanwhile, my parents vowed never to welcome my sister back into their lives. A person lacking such basic morality, who would steal her sister's husband, was no longer their daughter, my father and mother firmly declared. Viewing it as an opportunity, I decided to return to my parents' home as a prerequisite for filing the divorce papers, demanding compensation from my husband and sister. I made it clear that it was a condition for the dissolution of our ties. Surprisingly, my husband agreed without much resistance, stating, "If that's what it takes for a divorce, I'll pay." Shortly afterward, a substantial sum was transferred to my account. With this financial exchange as the final chapter, I completely severed ties with both my husband and Nova. Over the 12 years following the divorce, significant changes unfolded. My in-laws sold their property, my reputation as a web designer soared, and my income became incomparable to what it once was. These positive developments allowed me to enjoy fulfilling days, frequently embarking on trips with my parents. One busy day at work, my phone interrupted my routine, assuming it was a work-related call. I answered without checking the screen, only to be met with an unexpected voice. "Long time no see, Ivy. How have you been?" It was Josh, my ex-husband, still carrying the mocking tone I remembered so well. "What do you want? It's been 12 years since the divorce. Why contact me now?" I responded dismissively. He chuckled unpleasantly, revealing his true intentions. "Well, you see, you're in the way. Could you leave within 10 minutes? Perplexed, I questioned, "What are you talking about?" "We're in financial trouble, so we're heading your way. I'll bring my wife back, so you better leave my parents' house." Despite the passage of 12 years, he believed I still lived with my in-laws. In the background, my sister Noah joined in, echoing his sentiments. "That's right, get out. These two really know nothing. After 12 years, they think they can be forgiven just like that. The world doesn't work that way." Determined, I took a deep breath and delivered my final words. "If you want to go back, be my guest. But I'm no longer at your parents' house." Josh seemed baffled. "Really? Did you get kicked out by my dad or something?" His confusion deepened as I continued. "Your parents' house doesn't exist anymore. My parents disowned the woman with you. In other words, there's no place for you to come back to." In disbelief, he shouted, "This has to be a joke, right? It's up to you whether you believe it or not. Neither of us owes you an explanation," I replied unforgivingly. "Neither your parents nor my own father and mother consider you family anymore. There's no place for someone like you, who callously disregards people's feelings, in our family. It may seem harsh, but you shattered the bonds of family with your actions. Don't ever try to contact me again. I won't allow you to disrupt my life any longer." As I concluded, I hung up, ensuring to block their number, severing the last connection. Later, when my in-laws attempted to visit my parents' home in my absence, they were met with rejection. My parents had already disowned Nova. Despite her tearful pleas, they refused to recognize her, turning her away at the door. In a desperate attempt, they knelt before the entrance, begging for forgiveness. "Please, Mom, Dad, forgive us. We have nowhere else to go," my sister implored, prompting Josh to join in. "Our family home is gone. We have nowhere to return," he pleaded. But my parents remained resolute. "Enough. You two are no longer family, my father declared, as he called the police to handle the situation. Despite their persistence, my parents stood firm, refusing to relent. The police were summoned, and Josh and Nova were reported for causing disturbances. Since then, their whereabouts have remained unknown. They are without jobs or shelter, desperately seeking financial aid from friends to no avail. Rumors about their actions have spread, deterring anyone from offering assistance. Their chances of staying in their hometown seem slim, and they must face the hardships they've brought upon themselves in an unfamiliar place. This is the consequence of their actions. They must bear the burden of their choices. Alongside my parents, I have no intention of ever seeing them again. Hopefully, they will live with remorse for the sins they've committed.